Welcome to the Career Ecosystem Era in Higher Education podcast, where we explore the systemic changes colleges and universities are making to ensure every student receives the career learning they need to succeed. My name is Jeremy Podany. I'm the CEO and founder of the Career Leadership Collective, a consulting company dedicated to helping higher education transform their career ecosystems. Well, today we are launching a three-part series that I am really excited about. We're featuring the innovative work being done at the University of Texas at Austin on student career success. And I'm pleased to be joined by Michael Drew, Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and Professor of Neuroscience, and Daniel Liu, Assistant Vice Provost for Career Success. About 3 years ago, UT Austin decided to dedicate the time, resources, and energy needed to pursue a career learning foundation whereby every Longhorn designs and prepares for their future after UT. This is not a small task in a highly federated organization with 19 colleges and schools, diverse practices, and diverse approaches. In the midst of the journey, they faced headwinds, made great strides, and found bright spots. They've walked through a landscape analysis, new strategies, restructures, broad technology changes, and senior leader transitions. They're focused on embedded career design, deeper coordination across the career ecosystem, empowering career learning in academic environments, and have a deep belief that the work they're doing to further illuminate the incredible value proposition of the UT degree. In this series, we'll talk with central administration and two academic colleges to explore their wins, lessons learned, and future pursuits. Nick Catton on my team and I have had the privilege to walk this journey alongside them for the last 2 years, and we continue to be impressed by their commitment. It's my pleasure to welcome you both, Michael and Daniel, to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, looking forward. Well, change and progress and an eye toward innovation and distinction have been in the water for the last 3 years, in particularly. As we begin this series on the transformation work that you've been up to, can you walk us through a little bit of the recent history and tell us a bit about the UT Austin landscape?
Sure, Jeremy. I think we've all seen the increased scrutiny on the value of a college degree and whether universities are actually preparing students for what comes next. And so in the fall of 2023, I was asked by the president to lead a new career success initiative, really, trying to expand beyond what student success means. And it was aimed at pushing career services beyond the walls of the career center and embedding it deeply into all corners of our campus and the student experience. In fact, much of your thought leadership and from the Career Leadership Collective was really valuable as we thought about and benchmarked across the landscape. And so my charge really was to take a long-term holistic view and ensure that we were providing resources in the right places and creating career service excellence at scale for all 50,000 of our students. And so the first reality that we had was we had a fragmented and inconsistent landscape across our 19 colleges and schools, 17 separate career service offices with no clear shared standards around career outcomes, career coaching, resources, or even data reporting. Now, of course, we have some colleges that have incredibly robust career education and coaching and employer relations team, like our business school, the Macomb School of Business, or our College of Communications, Moody. But others, had a single coordinator with really no career true function. And so it was imperative to establish these shared paradigms in partnership with academic leaders and career service leaders, and then to offer flexibility to build something that really fits their students, their faculty, and their culture, and making sure that our overall students' career success wasn't solely owned by a career office, but really shared across the academic enterprise. And so we really went slow to go fast. It's one of my favorite kind of ways of doing this work, right? We started with listening tours with deans and others like Michael. We inventoried the needs across campus, and then we really redesigned a central team over the last 2 years into a center of excellence. And so some of the colleges, they had career courses, others didn't. Across the board, though, there just wasn't the shared language around career learning outcomes, let alone how to measure them. And so that was one of our really first tasks, was thinking about and gathering almost an advisory board committee to come together and say what should be shared, consistent career learning outcomes. And then that really gave us some clarity on where to prioritize our transformations. And so today, we've really made tremendous progress across a number of our colleges. Our Center of Excellence sits in academic affairs in the provost office and provides resources, infrastructure into the colleges. And we've co-developed a lot of really great work that we're excited to talk about today. One fun fact is that Michael was actually one of our really early adopters and champions. Right? At the time, he was Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education in the College of Natural Sciences, our largest with 11,000 undergrads. And now he's this, he's my boss. So.
Thanks, Dave. That was a great summary. I'll just emphasize one point. A few years ago, we had a central career office that was sometimes in competition with our college-based career offices. There was envy about differences in resourcing, and there was some redundancy. And what we've seen over the last few years under Daniel's leadership is this shift to the Center of Excellence model, where Daniel's office does not see students, and instead it's set up to support and enhance the efforts that are happening within the colleges. And what I've observed, and also I experienced this when I was in CNS, was people collaborating, talking to each other more, and sharing across colleges like they had never done before. And that in and of itself has been a real success.
I love this. And I think it's worth pointing out that a lot of these structural changes followed strategy, and they followed a lot of thought and time on why should we make a change? What are the needed challenges we're facing that we want to try to solve? And super important, because a lot of times people will, listen to a podcast like this and say, "Oh, that's the new structure at UT Austin. Why don't we just do that structure?" But you didn't just replicate something and move deck chairs. You actually pulled this structure into place after a lot of careful consideration. I really, really admire and love that. Um, Maybe we can dig into some of the challenges that you sought to solve in the first place. So, what what have been top of mind from a challenges perspective as you've put more time, energy, and resources into bolstering your career ecosystem?
Yeah, I could take that one on, and I'll probably put on my associate dean CNS hat as I start to talk about this, because that's how I experienced the inception of this. At that time, I remember I'm thinking a lot about resourcing and looking at our CN, our College of Natural Sciences career office, and thinking, we just don't have enough coaches, and this other college has got more coaches per student than we do, and we just need to get more coaches.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and actually, one of the times when you were here on campus, Jeremy, kind of helped make the light bulb in my head go off. And I had this idea that career learning is should be like any other type of learning that happens here on campus. We don't try to teach chemistry one-on-one with a
Yes.
faculty meeting one-on-one with a student, right? We have classes about it. And if we want to really have career learning happen in all of our students, we need to approach it the same way as we approach teaching all other subjects.
Yes.
So that was a big light bulb for me. Another challenge. So then when you start thinking about the ecosystem approach, a challenge was faculty buy-in and coordination. Faculty and departments are used to being very independent and siloed.
Yep.
And faculty have this aversion to what they think of as job training. They don't want to do job training.
Yeah.
Um, there was also, some skepticism about big centrally organized initiatives.
Yep.
Uh, but I think one of the things that helped us move past all of this, and we'll talk a little bit about that more, I think maybe later in the podcast, um, was to help faculty see that our career learning outcomes are very much outcomes that faculty already embrace when they think about what they want their students to learn.
Is the timing right to cultivate your career ecosystem? Then consider the consulting services of the Career Leadership Collective and learn from the best. We are the leading experts in helping U.S. colleges and universities build and cultivate thriving career ecosystems. At the Collective, we've served over 1,100 institutions across the country. Our consulting team combines national expertise with deep appreciation for your institution's unique culture, structure, and goals. Together, we can help you design bold, data-informed strategies that scale career learning for every student. Contact us today at consulting@careerleadershipcollective.com. Wonderful.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, again, I can still recall, Michael, some of our earliest sort of strategy sessions of what are we trying to solve for here? And I think when I look at innovation, it really starts when one of my favorite kind of innovation frameworks is 10x, right? Like, if we make small incremental changes, sometimes they're also hard to see the value of that change by a multitude of stakeholders. And as you mentioned, central initiatives often come with quite a bit of skepticism. And so we were very lucky that, we were able to create this space to really innovate by saying, we're not trying to solve for a headcount issue with central investments or something like that. We were really thinking about what are the, broader paradigm shifts that would allow us to really make a marked difference and impact. And I think, one challenge of any initiative of this size, scale, proportion is really maintaining momentum, right? In the first year, you can see a lot of excitement and energy. And again, with that skepticism, I think in any kind of change, you really have to demonstrate some quick wins to maintain trust that the effort, that the initiative is going to be impactful and enduring. And so I'm really proud that I think, as we looked at this challenge of how do we get everyone on board, and again, that everyone included, right, faculty, administrative leaders, as well as career services professionals who were in many ways feeling the impact or, feeling perhaps a degree of excitement and anxiety of how are we going to actually accomplish this? And so I think, by really engaging, associate deans as collaborators, really contextualizing the problem statements at each individual college's level really helped us, I think, navigate through some of those early challenges.
Yeah, that's really important. And I love how you're painting the picture of this. This takes time and there's strategy, but change management is always right next to strategy. And we have to do both of those well. I also really believe great change management needs early buy-in, and you all took the time to do that. Let's talk about that a little bit. You spoke with a lot of academic colleges, invited folks to participate. Um, Many stepped forward right away and said, "We need this. We like this." But why? Why were the deans and associate deans around campus so interested in this work?
Well, it certainly helps when there's a presidential imperative.
Absolutely.
But I,
Yeah.
I generally observe that, as you mentioned, each of our deans really were eager to figure out this, right? I think even the timing of when we launched, I recall many of our deans were meeting with their advisory councils and they were hearing, right, industry commentary and feedback around what they really wanted to see from our students and certainly edifying what great things were happening in the preparation of our students, but they were also looking for more. And so the pain point at large was deans were looking for blueprints and frameworks and thought leadership. Right? And so, I will say again, we truly did have some incredibly motivated deans around this topic. And I'm excited that, Ramon from the College of Fine Arts is going to be on later in this series. So I'm not going to steal too much of his thunder. But, I think, Michael, right. Again, I think it would be great to hear your perspective. I can still remember that first conversation we really had around your excitement. Would love for you to kind of share some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I could start by talking from my experience as a neuroscience faculty member. So, I'm a neuroscientist, and I taught as part of our undergraduate major in neuroscience, and I was a faculty advisor. And I had experience pretty often of students coming to me and saying, I thought I wanted to go to medical school. I thought I wanted to go to graduate school in neuroscience, and I decided I actually want to get a job after I graduate. What can you do for me? And what should I do? And feeling, my professional experiences up to that point had been as, an academic research neuroscientist. And I felt really ill-equipped to help students navigate that process. And as I talked to other faculty around campus, I realized that there were so many faculty who felt the same way. We were actually really wanted to have tools to better support our students. And so, when Daniel came knocking, there were already a lot of faculty who were receptive for that reason. Early in the process, Daniel also helped us gather data. We did a survey of our students, and we saw that there were many pockets of students who were calling out for more support. Um, and then I think the framing really mattered a lot. I mentioned before job skills, job training. Faculty
Yeah.
on our campus hate thinking about job training. But when we reframed it and we talked about, big part of this is helping our students see the connection between the academic work they're already doing and how that connects to their future careers. And that those skills that students are already gaining, we just need to help those skills are important. We just need to help students better articulate what they are and see the connections. There was a lot more faculty buy-in.
Yeah. I really, really like that. And it's uh the words matter in these equations is how we even approach this with faculty and seeing the light bulbs come on for you and come on for others is an important part of that change process. It's wonderful to see that there is a way to make authentic and reasonable connections from academic learning to career learning for the sake of student futures. And along this journey, after the early buy-in, he started to build. And I'm really curious as you've defined your career ecosystem and as you've started the journey of embedded career learning, what have been some of the gems and bright spots?
I'll mention one from CNS. And I think in a future podcast, you'll have Jesse Wandelt and Aniki Shai on. And so you'll hear more about this. But I'm really excited about some of the work they've done in CNS. One of the things that we discovered, so in our College of Natural Sciences, we have an enormous number of students who aspire to medical careers in medical professions. We talked to those students, even though we have a health professions office, and we talk to students and ask, where are you getting the information you need about that career path? They were all over the place. A lot of students were talking to members of their family. A lot of students are talking to other students. Some of the students are going to the office. And we also saw there were a lot of differences in outcomes, and that there were plenty of students who were just not getting the information they need. And so Jesse led an effort to establish a seminar series that provided kind of just-in-time information in the first year, second year, and third year about exploring careers, kind of investigating, personal interests and values and how they can map onto careers, and then actually preparing to apply and interview. And we've seen an enormous number of students be interested in these seminars and sign up for them and take them, and it seems to be having a really positive effect. And she's also led a group of faculty fellows across natural sciences um, and two things I've been really excited about there. And one is the level of faculty engagement. As we set up these opportunities, there's always the worry that, the skepticism would prevail, the worries, the aversion to kind of job training would prevail. But instead, what we've seen is actually a lot of faculty wanting to get involved. And we've also learned about that there are a lot of great things already happening on campus, but there just hasn't been a lot of coordination and sharing of ideas so that those could really influence each other and have a greater impact.
Yeah, I think one of the key phrases we used on site was moving from organic to organized is such a key part of this process that there truly is a lot that's already happening. It's not a we'll start from a tabula rosa, it's a blank
Mhm.
carte blanche. This is like there's a lot we can put together and showcase here. And Daniel, what would you add to this about the gems that you're seeing along the way?
So there are two that really stick out for me. The first one is I'm a data nerd, right? And I think coming from previously leading career services in the business school side, where outcomes is such an important part and all the data is really valuable. I think understanding trends of our students in the market was something I felt like if we're going to do this transformation and we can't see ourselves, how are we ever going to really know where to strategically invest and help our college leaders to really understand where to focus? And so I'm really proud that in really less than 6 months of our initiative launching, we were able to move all 19 colleges onto one unified platform for career management services, outcomes, and reporting. And so to me, establishing that infrastructure in year one was really critical. I'll share a small nugget. Being able to go to a dean and say, "Did you know that you have students who've reported, right? This is self-reporting, but they've reported in fields and in industries that you would have never expected, right?" And so, College of Education, having students going into Wall Street with investment banking. I mean, again, these are stories that I think naturally would not likely have bubbled up. And that was really exciting to see that kind of the early trust building happen because we were providing something of value to colleges that they, in some cases had never had before. The other really early decision, and I would say in reflection, perhaps the most important decision I've made was as we moved away from student services, I took, one of our directors or leaders aside and said, you're going to stop doing career counseling. And he was like, gasp, right? This is what I
Yeah.
love doing. And we asked him to build something entirely new, right? And so his charge was to take some of the life design models, right, that have been floating around, and these are not new, right? I think we've seen a decade plus at that time, but really create a Texas version of this, right? Something that would actually resonate with our colleges and our students. And so what Nathan built is our career and life integration framework, a set of clear career learning outcomes centered on things like adaptability, creativity, and better judgment. And so the North Star was really simple, right? Our students need to graduate prepared, not just credentialed. And if we can help provide some framework and rails for faculty to really, embed into their classroom experience, this would allow us to accelerate that work. And so, again, you're going to feature Ramon and Nathan later on the podcast, but I can't not share just some teasers here. When we started this work about 2 years ago on this framework, we started with one college. We had obviously had a dean who was excited about it, so there was some great rapport. But then, by the end of that year, we were operating in three of the colleges and helping them create 1 to 3 credit courses, embedding various learning modules into existing courses. And this fall, we're scaling to 11 of our amazing colleges and schools. And so, what this looks like in practice has been everything from, a multi 6 to 8 learning modules embedded into the College of Education, even the Macomb School of Business, right? Within one of their honors courses, they chose to embed 3 or 4 of these modules. And so I think that way of working for us, of being that center of excellence and really kind of creating just, momentum and innovation, has been really powerful. And, we're not just handing faculty a program, right, and saying, please add this, right, that never works. And so I think where we really saw incredible traction again is really earning their trust by collaborating with them and again providing some of that lift to design, and building this library of modules, right. And I'll just end with, I think this momentum in the past 2 years has even really caught the attention of our broader UT system. And Nathan was actually asked to co-host this amazing conference on academic integration of career education that brought together more than 120 attendees from all 13 UT system institutions. That really, again, we had a range from career professionals to provosts. It was a really incredible dialogue and 2 days of programming that just sort of brought forth what are some of these innovative career frameworks and being able to showcase some of what we've been already doing here at UT Austin.
That was an incredible convening to see. I was glad to be there. Michael
Yeah, it was
was
great to have
there.
you.
There was a lot of people around that came together to. I think I championed that as well. It really was a fruit of a lot of your labor, is what I'll say, and probably a moment of pride for you as well. Um, well, you mentioned something a couple times that I want to come back to, Daniel. There's a unique factor in this that came after some of these strategic conversations. One of the large changes that you made along the journey was moving the central career office to a center of excellence that no longer serves students directly, but exists to serve the colleges. Can you talk about that uniqueness?
Yeah, again, this was not an easy just redesign, right? I think the principle was very clear that if we were going to truly serve 50,000 students across 19 colleges, we really couldn't just do this by directly getting in front of students, right? That just, you can never really add to that at a university of our size and scale. We really, and I think this is the beauty of being as decentralized as we are. I've really over the last decade being here at UT Austin, I've come to appreciate and honor sort of the distributed nature that we have, because it allows for each of the colleges to bring their expertise. And so, while I think there definitely was some early tension, that the sense that the center kind of encroaches, or what is its purpose. By getting really clear on that, it really provided clarity and then allowed us to really move forward. I think the thing that whenever you can stop doing something, I really think that's a really important strategy. Right? Being able to stop then begs the question, well, what are you going to do? And when we really looked at where can this central career success team best serve the colleges, we really identified four core functions, right? So number one, right, we set standards and strategy across the university, right? We establish strong, consistent foundations, and then we invest in learning and development across the 100 plus career service professionals and faculty across campus. And then we also, number two, we pioneered a new employer engagement hub. I actually brought in a leader who did not come from higher education career services, was formerly in the talent acquisition space, but just a really great deep thinker and strategist. And so she's done an incredible job of helping work across and create a more coordinated strategic approach versus, the disparate degrees that we had in terms of how we engage with our employer ecosystem. And then lastly, that in enterprise technology, right, really providing that infrastructure of tools, data to empower, enrich, really important. And then I think the last function is, across that data, once you have it, what are the insights and providing services in areas where campus didn't have necessarily the resources. You might not have a data analyst who is dedicated to the career side of this, and being able to share that insights and provide those services was really important.
Yeah.
I think, in hindsight, the one part that really made this unique was taking the time to think about what really were the right problems. And so as if you're a listener, right, I think thinking about what is it that you're trying to solve for, before you just jump and build something, or take action. I think that listening phase truly wasn't important, and allowed us to think about, this was not some novel idea that I said, this is how I want it to be. It really came from a deep set of conversations over about a 6-month period before we really crystallized, and then went through feedback sessions and loops. And then, once we kind of felt like we had deep buy-in from campus leaders, we said go, and it's been, amazing since that moment.
Yeah, and it's such a strategy that serves everyone. And it removed the tension in the room of, are these your
Yeah.
students or are they our students? And I think that's a very important call out from this deep 50-year history of, are we centralized or decentralized? You've
Mm-hmm.
created a coordinated model that's built around strategy where you can actually work together and not have to keep entertaining that tough question. Yeah, well done. Another unique point is I'd love to talk about core curriculum review, and you've been going undergoing some core curriculum review. Michael, the campus has been undertaking this, and I know you've been a key aspect, a key player in all of this. Can you tell us about some of those efforts and how you see core curriculum review helping the broader career ecosystem efforts?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Um, So I think our campus is not unique among our peers in that the core, our general education requirements have become somewhat neglected. They've grown into essentially a distribution requirement where there are lots of different courses on different topics, and many of them are great courses. But on the whole, the core has very little shape and intentionality. And our president and provost, when they came in, decided to make this a priority, and they convened a committee, a faculty committee, to try to define uh, how we can make our core more intentional and define, what are the key areas of knowledge and skills that students need to be successful. Um, and our definition of success is bigger than just preparing students for their major or their first job. It means preparing students to lead, to be great citizens, positive contributors to society, to be good human beings. Um, Part of our plan, a central part of our plan, is to use the core to create space for students beginning in their first semester to have deep engagement with foundational texts, ideas, debates, putting students into a small class with a professor in their first semester where they have a chance to hone their ability to read, to think, to analyze, to communicate. So I see this as an investment in kind of the deep cognitive skills that I think in the AI era are under threat. So this core initiative is not really about um, career learning. Um,
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when we've talked to employers about it, we've heard a lot of excitement. And I think that's because the abilities that are going to be honed by this core, like the ability to think critically, to communicate complex ideas, to engage in civil debate around difficult issues, to understand context. I think these types of skills are not being replaced by AI, but they're becoming more valuable because um, students, many students are not developing them because they're offloading some of the cognitive labor to AI. But also to be an effective user of AI, we need to use these skills to analyze how to use AI and to analyze the output of the AI.
Well said. Well said. Well, let's look ahead. What are the next big steps for UT Austin, and how do you see them further strengthening student career success?
Yeah. The through line for everything we focus on is really making career learning unavoidable, right? Continuing to embed it more deeply across the academic experience, across more colleges and more students. I think that's sort of an imperative. On the employer side, as Michael touched on, we've launched something called our Employer Voice Project. It's a real deliberative effort to engage employers across multiple industries, eight actually, and ask them directly, how do you define early career success, and how are those expectations changing? Right. And this is not just driven by sort of AI's disruption, but really deeply trying to get at some of the core questions. And what's been fascinating is, there's not a single company that's not thinking about this. And at the same time, many companies are still deep in what I'd call sort of the analysis and processing phase. And that just provides a real opportunity for institutions, higher education institutions, to really think about how can they co-partner and design, right, this future together. I mean, to me, this is something we're really excited about. We're hearing again the value of these human skills, and it's just been really wonderful to see this alignment that's been happening. And we've, I wouldn't say we've stumbled on it. In fact, I think we've spent a lot of time thinking deeply about this, and ensuring that students can actually develop these skills academically and not just claim them on a resume like a badge or something that they just because they took a course, right? So I think there has to be some practice in this, and so that's very exciting. I think the last sort of piece on this is, again, I mean, there are two counter narratives right now, and by the time the podcast releases, we'll see where that narrative has gone further. But one is that AI is eliminating this on ramp for early career talent. But what we're really hearing is that employers are, in some cases, are doubling down. And the question isn't whether they want this early talent. It's what they need the talent to be able to do. And I think, again, this is where there's real opportunity for us to say, this is what a UT Austin student, right? And again, this is going back to the core, right? All of our students have these consistent experiences. And when you interview a UT Austin graduate, you're going to get a very consistent experience of brilliant, sharp students who have, right, again, these really powerful, strong human skills. And at the same time, right, also have been trained to navigate and have practiced these AI skills as well. I'll end with kind of like, one of the key areas of innovation in employer engagement. We did a pilot with Disney this past year that's a really great example of reimagining beyond the traditional recruiting experience, right? The college fair, the career fair. Disney came to campus, so we work closely actually with our College of Communications and the associate dean there. And we had Disney come to campus and teach a course, right? So they came in one day for a course across all sections. And so every single student was able to get this experience around leadership communications and get that exposure to how a company like Disney, right, a desired employer for many of the students, thinks about and does this work. And so I think that's really the kind of direction we look forward to doing more and going more in, is employers who are part of that education experience and not just recruiting, and really thinking about creating, whether it's simulations or really practical moments where our students can engage in practice. So really excited about some of those things.
Yeah. Michael, looking forward.
Top of mind for me is metrics. As part of this process, our different colleges have established metrics to measure their transformation efforts against. And the next step for us is to come together to agree on some shared metrics that we can all work toward. I think about how for your graduation rate metric transformed this campus over the last decade and a half. That was something, for your graduation rate was something that everybody could rally behind. It was simple. And over the last 10 to 15 years, we made tremendous strides. And I think to make this effort sustainable, but also and to demonstrate value to all the various stakeholders, it's going to be great to have some shared metrics.
No doubt. And we are seeing metrics come on the scene in the career ecosystem era in real time very quickly. And so looking forward to engaging in that conversation. Last question, very briefly. What is your hope for the future of higher education? Daniel?
I think it's that we continue to see this dialogue shift, right? This paradigm shift of, it's not one or the other. It's not, competing resources, but really much stronger buy-in and alignment around career readiness. And, in some ways, I look forward to a world where we don't talk about just career learning outcomes. They're just learning outcomes because it's so embedded. So that's something I'm really looking forward to and hope for higher education, right? That we really can be honest about what we're preparing students for, and that we really can, perhaps in some cases, right, re-earn that trust about what we are preparing our students for.
Yeah. Michael?
Oh, I agree with that. And I'll add, we talk a lot about public trust. We're a public institution, and we need to establish that trust. And I think part of that, a big part of that is demonstrating value. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to move beyond this kind of defensive posture about the value of higher education, and be able to confidently articulate what I think we do better than anybody else, which is to help young people develop intellectual capacity and self-knowledge to navigate an uncertain future. We don't just prepare students for the first job, we prepare students for a lifetime of learning and adaptation and contribution. But to get there, we do have some work to do. And part of that work means that amid all the challenges we have, whether they're budgetary or the encroachment of AI, that we are providing students with the skills and the dispositions that make them an excellent scholar, like curiosity, intellectual rigor, persistence, the ability to synthesize or analyze information. because I really do believe that these are exactly the skills that make somebody successful in their career and in their life.
Michael Drew, Daniel Liu, University of Texas at Austin. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And you can catch all the episodes and subscribe to the podcast and our newsletter at careerleadershipcollective.com/podcast. As always, if you've not yet ordered the book, The Career Ecosystem Era in Higher Education, we encourage you to do so. Send us your questions, thoughts on what's working, and challenges you'd like us to address to podcast@careerleadershipcollective.com. We are building a new era together. Bye for now.